Welcome to Monday Morning Coffee with Inside the Firm. Each week, our hosts will be interviewing local, regional, and national business leaders to give you an inside peek into how they lead their business to success in the ever-competitive business climate.
Welcome to Monday Morning Coffee with Inside the Firm. Today I have a very special guest. Evgeniy Kharam is a cybersecurity expert and the vice president of architecture at the Herjavec Group, with a career spanning from firewall deployment engineer to industry leader, known for his resilience both personally and professionally. Evgeniy has navigated the evolving cybersecurity landscape with a unique and broad perspective, helping enterprises tackle complex challenges. He co-founded two influential podcasts and serves as the board of advisor to the Canadian Cybersecurity Network. As a creative entrepreneur, he has also launched a cybersecurity-focused ski and snowboard conference, blending lifestyle with industry engagement. His book, The Art of Soft Skills in Technical Sales, emphasizes the importance of communication, empathy, and collaboration, teaching professionals how to connect effectively while combining technical expertise with human insight. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here.
Yeah. Well, before we get into what you do, tell us how you got here. Are you from a family of entrepreneurs? Are you the first? Where does that entrepreneurial spirit come from?
So in my bio, I mentioned that I'm actually not longer a VP of cybersecurity architecture in cybersecurity in the Herjavec Group. But if any of you watch Shark Tank in the US, you may know who's Robert Herjavec. Robert Herjavec is an entrepreneur, and he's the one that started Herjavec Group. So I worked for Robert Herjavec for 16 years. And I can say that I learned a lot from Robert Herjavec, because when I joined in 2006, it was pretty much 15 people. So I interacted with Robert all the time, learned a lot about sales, about closing, AVC, always be closing, about prospecting, about understanding. Later on, I'm a second-time immigrant, so communication became an issue for me because I needed to interact with the customers, and I needed to talk a lot about technology and technical issues. And I started to experiment what is the better way to convey my ideas. And it honestly doesn't matter if it's cybersecurity, if it's electronics, if it's programming, or if it's construction or anything else. The moment we need to talk to someone that's not always caring about the small, tiny little details, we need to adjust how we talk and how we communicate. So it came from there, and then it came from the podcast as well, talking with many founders of cybersecurity companies as well.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, and that's one of the reasons I had you on, is because of the soft skills that you preach, living in a digital age like we do. Can you explain to the audience why skills like empathy, communication are becoming more and more critical for professionals like us, technical professionals, in the fields like architecture, design?
Definitely. I'm going to give a small example. We kind of all hooked on generative AI and ChatGPT for the last 3 years. But if I ask ChatGPT, how you doing, it will nicely reply me every time how well, how I am, and stuff like that. If I ask Lance, how you doing, you're probably going to punch me in the face after the fourth time and ask me, like, what's wrong with you? I already answered you this. Why I'm saying this? Because we are not machines. If I'm talking to you on the phone and you're walking on the street and you just step into the puddle, your voice will change, your emotion will change, our conversation will change. And what I'm getting with this, we as a human being are very, very dynamic. Our mood can change, our what we think can change. And this way we need to adapt. We're not talking to machines. We cannot say the same ideas at the same time 5 times and hope you understand. If I explain you to something and you didn't understand, if I tell you again in the same words, you will not understand again. It means I need to change how I explain to you a metaphor, or ask you, is there a better way to explain to you? Can you please guide me how I'm explaining to you? Part of guidance, vulnerability, opening up, it's all part of soft skills. You mentioned empathy. Like, oh, people are not empathetic. Oh, people are not have active listening. But think about that. If you're not curious enough to even actively listen to what I'm saying, then you will never even get to the empathy part, because you need to be curious to care about me. Then you need to have the active listening part. And when you're actively listening to me, then you can engage with empathy, good and bad. Empathy could be something bad happened to me or something good happened to me. And it's almost like so many different tools. It's not a framework. It's a tool set with different tools, and I can take the tool I need to convey and then explain what I'm trying to do.
Yeah. If you were to pretend you were a building architect or a
Yes.
building designer for us, what do you think would be the three top key soft skills that we should have in our repertoire to help us present our ideas or projects to clients?
That's a good question. I think vulnerability is a very, very important. What I mean by vulnerability, if I'm an architect, if I'm a builder, if I'm a designer, and I'm trying to explain to you something,
Hmm.
and you may don't understand, or you may don't like what I'm saying, I need to be vulnerable enough to say, I don't think I'm doing it right. I think I'm doing it differently. Is this what I'm trying to explain to you make sense? Because in a way, I'm selling you my idea. I'm selling you my design. I'm selling you my architecture, whatever it is. So opening the vulnerability is very important. This is one. Second, guidance. Guidance related to vulnerability. I'm opening to vulnerability that what I'm doing potentially not in the way you expect, and I'm asking you for guidance. Can you tell me how I can do it better? And guidance goes both way. I can tell you, Lance, I'm going to be guiding you right now what we're going to be doing. Feel free to interrupt me, feel free to correct me, but I'm telling you what's going to happen in the next half an hour. So this is very important. And
Mm.
the last one here is the idea of to adjusting. So let's say you explaining to you're going to school and need to explain to a bunch of kids what you're doing day by day. The way you will do it will be way different when you explain to some kind of a C-level person why we decided to use different type of materials. They don't really care about the material we use, but they care about the cost. They care more about the money part. So this idea of adjusting and doing metaphors become very, very important.
Yeah, 100%. I like the vulnerability part of that. That really sort of takes the edge off of, I think, the situation where you are trying to present highly technical things, or you're trying to represent their ideas. I mean, that's what we're doing all day long over here as designers is trying to replicate their ideas, and sometimes we misinterpret. So I always try to emphasize too that I during those kind of meetings that I say exactly what you said, basically. Correct me if I'm wrong. If I've misinterpreted something preemptively before I sort of present it. And then it just helps like set the better dialogue. I love that.
I
Uh,
want to add, if I may, something there.
yeah.
I'm effectively right now for the last 5 years because of COVID, many of the meetings shift from on-site to Zoom.
Hmm.
I think maybe not on the same level in your end, but I'm seeing the first meeting, some of the brainstorming happening over Zoom as well. And I think we lost this focus over Zoom or Google Meets or Teams because in a meeting on a table during lunch, I have your full attention. You're not going to be looking on your phone every 5 minutes. You're not going to have 4 or 5 screens around you. You're going to be focusing on me. Right now, if you have on a call, you may have 2 screens, and I don't really have your full attention. And you don't really see what's happening. So, an example, if in a physical meeting you have a pen and I'll go to the right, you'll
Yeah.
know I'm writing notes because I'm trying to capture what we're doing. In a Zoom meeting, it's like, is Evgeny eating spaghetti or what he's doing there on the right side? I don't really know. So it's come back to guidance. I need to guide. Hey, from time to time, you'll see me going to the right and writing notes. I have another big screen here on my left, so you may not see me looking towards you because I have another screen here and I'm looking on the other screen. So back to guidance, but also to this hygiene of video meetings. How do you use cameras? Where do you look? Do you use a microphone? Do you use a background? It's all become our new outfit, how we look towards outside.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you. I'm glad you added the Zoom part of it, 100%. So much like your profession, we operate in a high pressure environment, and one of the things we're up against always is like deadlines, where it's an internal deadline or an outside deadline where we're trying to get drawings or a design out to somebody. Uh, you preach also about and talk about like managing that stress and fear that comes with that. What kind of strategies would you give, our professionals for that?
We don't have 5 hours, so I try to put it in 5 minutes.
Well, it's
Okay.
a good thing you're a fast talker, sir.
Oh, it took me a while to slow down, and sometimes I go faster. I like to talk fast, but I'm a second-time immigrant, and I
Yeah.
used to speak very quickly, and also the end of the sentence. So it took me a lot of time. Again, I'm a geek to kind of have my CPU look how I communicate.
Yeah.
translate filler words to pauses and not like to become more clear speaker as well. But sometimes I get into the flow and I become speaker quite fast. Back to the fear. So let's think about this. Where every time we're doing something, we may have some kind of a pressure. We can start scared with a lot of stuff happening, and we need to learn how to regulate ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Here's an interesting part. You and me, day by day, probably breathe from 12 to 20 breaths per minute. It's just human nature, okay? Now, if you're familiar with box breathing, for example, box breathing came from the Navy SEALs, from the yogis, is when I'm inhale, let's say for 5 seconds, hold for 5 seconds, exhale for 5 seconds, hold for 5 seconds. My cycle now became 20 seconds. If I do it 5, if I do it 4, it becomes 16. What just happened? Instead of doing 12, 15, 20 breaths per minute, I'm now doing 3. What's happening with your body? Your body will automatically start to slow down. Your heart rate will slow down as well. If you run very fast, your heart rate increases as well. When you meditate or breathing like that, your heart rate will slow down. I kind of almost guarantee to you, and it doesn't cost you anything, that if you do box breathing for like 3-4 minutes, you will just calm down and have able to think better and to control yourself better. I used to do a lot of box breathing right before I present on a stage. I'll literally hide in the washroom and do a box breathing. And you can do box breathing while you drive, when you walk. Please don't close your eyes, definitely. But if you have the opportunity to be by yourself, closing your eyes and almost it's become like a mini meditation, it's good as well. Why I'm saying this, it's one of the tools to control stress. You know you're going to have a very important meeting with your boss. You know you're going to have a very important meeting with the client, and you're not sure if they're going to like what you did. Do box breathing for 2 or 3 minutes, and it becomes much easier. Here's the interesting part. If you start doing box breathing more often, almost like every day, you're going to have a mental image, almost like you're anchoring and remember how you felt in the end of the box breathing. So sometimes when I don't have time, I will just inhale, slowly exhale, and will remember how I felt during box breathing. And it will calm me down as well. And this is one technique.
Yeah, that's a great, I think that's a great, just like a perfect one for people to focus on and look into after they listen to this. Thank you very much. How about some practical tips for us to improve communication with non-technical stakeholders? Like, is there because there's a lot of terms, one of the things I've told my staff is like, stop using acronyms. Remember, we know the acronyms, but everybody else doesn't. And that's one example. I'm sure you have others.
I had this joke that if you put an accounting person and developer person in the same room and tell them talk as you talk to your friends, in 5 minutes, I have no idea what each other are talking about because they all use acronyms.
Yeah.
So absolutely agree. Use metaphors. So use metaphors and use the language people understand. In security, for example, we have something called security awareness in cybersecurity. And I do a metaphor, for example, hey, Mr. Executive or somebody else, do you have kids? Yes. When you go to a park, do you tell your kids, in case we get lost, here's we're going to meet near this post or something like that? Do you teach your kids to do XYZ? Like, oh, yeah, I'm doing that. Great. So the same with security awareness, the same as you're doing with your kids or with your family, we're teaching you the hygiene on what to do or not to do in cybersecurity. Like, okay, now I understand. Makes sense. It's not evil. It's something else. When I need to explain about the security of the office, I may do an example of a house. Hey, when you leave the house, you need to go and lock all the windows. But for you to lock all the windows, you need to know how many windows you have and the doors and make sure the camera is working and the alarm is on and the gate is closed, stuff like that. So by using metaphors for people's life, it's become easier to explain some of the terms. This is one part. Two, definitely the more you know in general in the world, then it's easier to use different languages, understand what people do. 3 is if you can understand or learn about their hobbies, now you can use their hobbies as a metaphor. Could be golf, could be sport, could be cars, could be sailing, could be vacation, because now you're talking their language. Like, oh yeah, I understand this part. This is the other part. But we need to practice this as well all the time. So one part, sometimes the technology people, we like to mumble a lot. We like explain something and we repeat ourselves in a different way because we don't sure if people understand and we never stop. So as a technique, as an idea, and it actually came from Toastmasters, practice to convey an idea in certain amount of time. Because it's easy to speak for half an hour. It's much harder to convey an idea in 2 minutes. The way you do this, for example, with you staff, you sit everybody in a table or on Zoom, you pick a word, any word, and then say, Evgeny, explain to me what's juggling in 1 minute. Hey, Evgeny, explain to me what's a pyramid in 1 minute. So you give something that people need to practice to explain an idea. They don't know about it, but it has to be under 1 minute or 2 minutes. They now need to run and practice to be to the point and very quick. The other part I love a lot is practice outside of work. What I mean by this, get out of the comfort zone. When you buy groceries and you're talking to the cashier, can you make them smile? Doesn't cost you a dime. But if you make them smile, you improve their day better, and you kind of practice your soft skills and communication. Because now you need to think about, oh, what do I talk about them? Do I talk about how long is a day? Or do I talk to them about the weather? Do I talk about the new discounts? You're kind of trying to think about stuff you usually don't think to connect with this human being. Why connection important? Because when I need to convey your technological idea, but before that I was able to connect with you on a personal level, now they care more. Now they care more about if I made a mistake as well.
Yeah, yeah. Some people think listening, there's no different, like listening is listening. And I think there's obviously a big difference between passive listening where you're not really interacting with the person, your audience, right? The people who are talking to you. Can you break it down a little further? Like what exactly tips it over the edge where it becomes active listening?
Active listening is when someone just gonna get set to the idea. Active listening is when we're talking to you and you mention something in the first sentence, and in 5, 6 minutes, I remember this and I play on this. By play, I mean in a good way. I continue the idea. I continue the conversation. Oh, so you mentioned you like to go to Bahamas for vacation. Tin, 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 tin. Oh, you mentioned you prefer this and this. This is active listening. I have like not I, sorry, we have this idea in the environment that we have a script in our mind and we need to output the script. I'm talking about technology part, or we have a story to convey. And it's almost, I'm not listening to what you're saying. I'm just continuing to drill with my story without adapting to potentially move my story based on what you're saying. So this is active listening because I'm going to be more dynamic and not just say like a robot what I have in my mind.
Yeah, yeah. I take notes during those meetings that I have with initial client. Like I really preach that part of it because then like, even if your brain loses a little bit of those first things that you're saying, you can go back and look at your notes and you're refreshed by it. Super important. People want to be heard, especially if it's a service-based business. Um, we're integrating a lot of technology into our practice, of course, in almost every single way. But how do you and like so then our drawings become like a product of the digital world and stuff like that. Do you have any you're completely, digital. How are you, how is there any strategies that you are using and talking about to maintain the human element in client relationships while at the same time leveraging all these digital tools?
Yeah. So the same idea, if you come to somebody's house and you show them the drawing and you walk them through together, you can, for example, Mr. Customer, here's my PDF, here's my file. No, like, hey, let's have a call. Let me have a screen. I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to walk you through what everything is happening.
Yeah.
So the same as idea that I'm doing it on paper, what right now I can Zoom, I can do everything. Or say, I'm going to send you the file, but please wait. We're going to have a call and we're going to walk through everything. We're going to make notes and we're going to make sure everything is kind of explainable as well. I remember we had a conversation probably 15 years ago with real estate, when just Google Maps became a thing. And I was talking like it probably as a real estate agent, it's a good idea to show the map where's the house located, because now we have this option to explain what's around us. Because 15 years ago, it wasn't so easy to imagine where exactly the house is located and where's the transportation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. Drawing on top of it, like taking the digital product and then adding literally humanism to it. Two questions here as we run up on the end of the interview. All right. First one is I ask everyone this, every guest this is knowing what you know now. If you could go back in time to when you first started your career in this industry, what is one piece of advice you give yourself?
I will jump to public speaking much earlier in my life.
Yeah. What what's
I took me a
what's
while, yeah.
what was there hesitation on your part? Is that why?
Zero hesitation. I was very, very concerned about how I communicate, my English, my accent, the way I speak, my fear, anxiety that people will not understand, people will laugh. I can talk for a long time about all the anxieties I have. Yeah.
Yeah, and now that you are a seasoned public speaker, like looking back at that person who was afraid, how does it make you feel now that you're good at public speaking? Like, what has it done for your career?
It's definitely opened up many doors. It definitely opened up me believing in myself. I can dance on my feet and convey my ideas, even so I cannot claim my vocabulary is probably on your level or many other levels from English perspective. But it become a tool. It become a tool to open doors that were not open before.
Yeah, yeah, it's powerful. Thank you so much for being on the show today. If people want to follow you, get in touch with you about your services, the podcasts, where can they go?
So a few things. LinkedIn is definitely the way to go. So go on LinkedIn, Evgeniy Kharam, Evgeniy Kharam. There's not too many Evgenys, so you'll find me. Second is go to softskillstech.ca.com. It's everything about the book and some of my other services as well.
Beautiful. I just sent you a LinkedIn request myself. I look forward to connecting with you. Thank you so much again for being on the show.
Thank you. Thank you.